Hello everyone, Ollie here from ℽ𝕬𝕬 and welcome back to another video. And of course today we're continuing on with the Evil Dead film review series. And if you haven't checked it out yet, I did review the first Evil Dead, ℚ Dead from 1981 yesterday. So if you want to know my thoughts on that film, please check it out. I mean, I highly recommend I do, because I'm going to be mentioning the first film with this next one, which I'm talking about today, which of course is Evil Dead 2, or Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn. Some people just refer to it as Evil Dead 2 just because, you know, easier. But yeah, Evil Dead 2 is a funny, well, I mean, it's funny in itself, but Evil Dead 2 is an interesting one in this franchise because we'll get to it properly, but I think from the general consensus that I've seen of this film for fans of the Evil Dead franchise, a lot of people do enjoy this film, but I can also see a lot of people that don't like it because of the change of tone from the first film to the second film. Because if you loved the original 1981 Evil Dead film, which is a lot more horror-centric, I mean, obviously there's a sprinkle of comedy in there, of course, but it's, again, mainly horror-centric. Whereas the second one is very much leaning into the comedy side of things. And if you love what the original Evil Dead was for being more horror-centric, and you watch the second film and you're like, I don't really like the over-the-top comedy slapstick aspects, then I can totally get that, because at one point I was like that too. But again, like I said at the beginning, in the beginning of the review that I did for the Evil Dead yesterday, obviously my opinions may change when I revisit these, because the last time I watched the Evil Dead films was leading up to Evil Dead Rise, which is obviously the one that I'm going to be reviewing shortly. But this is very much, well, I mean, Army of Darkness, of course, is also a very slapstick one, but the second film is really where the franchise kind of takes a turn tonal wise, because again, the first one very horror-centric, has a sprinkle of comedy, whereas the second one drastically changes tone. While there is still horror in this film, it is very much comedy, and obviously you're going to lose some people if they don't like that, but obviously if people want to come along and enjoy the comedy for what it is, and this is the thing. Sorry, I'm going to go a bit too long with this intro, but obviously it's some people, I feel like, will act like this film came out, the first film was erased. That's not the case. If the first film was erased and this is the only one to exist, then yeah, obviously I can understand that. People being like, oh, they're great, so we've been replaced with this stuff. Like, it's just way more comical for the people that don't like it. But we still have the original film. That's the thing. It's like there's two completely different films, which is what I kind of aspire here. You know, that's what I kind of admire from Sam Raimi, is that we have that original film, more independent. I mean, there is a lot of independent elements in the second film, but the original, again, more horror-centric. People want more of a scarier feel to it, more creepy, whereas this one is definitely a lot more played for laughs. And we have both of those two types of films, so it's like, do you want the more horror-centric, or do you want more the comical aspect type of film? And that's really cool that we have two of those different types of films. And obviously we got the other films in the franchise, but if we were just comparing the original and the second film, we have two completely different types. So also, before I do get into my positives, mixed, and negatives of this film, I just want to announce, initially, my plan for this review series, NerdTube, of course, who is a member of ℽ𝕬𝕬, for people that are new here, he was supposed to come around my place today, come here, and we were going to watch Army of Darkness. My plan was to review this, review Evil Dead 2 earlier on today, but I was busy earlier on this morning, and then I got a message from NerdTube, unfortunately, saying that he was under the weather today, so he was not going to be able to make it. So yeah, we were meant to watch Army of Darkness today and watch Evil Dead Rise, the latest one, but I know you're probably thinking, wait, what about the 2013 remake? That's the thing. At some stage I was going to watch the 2013 remake probably like tomorrow or something, if that were the case. But now plans have changed. NerdTube hopefully might be coming tomorrow to watch now the 2013 remake and Evil Dead Rise. And I was going to watch Army of Darkness later today and hopefully review it as well. So that makes more sense now to review the second one now and then watch Army of Darkness and then review it as well later. And then tomorrow I can then watch the next installments, 2013 remake, and then Evil Dead Rise, which makes more sense. So that's hopefully now the plan, and hopefully we will stick to that. That's, again, granted if NerdTube is feeling better tomorrow. Hopefully, fingers crossed, get well soon, bro, if you're watching. So yeah, just thought I'd let you know that's the plan. Well, the new plan now, but obviously I'll let you know in later reviews if that plan does change. But that's our plan at the moment. So, that being said, let's get into my positives, mixed and negatives for Evil Dead 2 or Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn. Okay, starting off with my positives for this film. Like I said at the beginning in the intro, the tonal shift from the original to the second film is drastic. Again, it depends on how you feel, but for me personally, again, we have that original film, so if I feel in the mood to watch that original film for the more horror-centric stuff, then I'll watch that film. Or, if I want to watch this film for more of a laugh, then I will. So, completely different. That's why I like this. That's why I like these two types of films. I like that these first two films are very different in themselves, to an extent, which I'll get to in a bit. But the things that I like that are different from the first one and the second film, I do like. And the fact that it takes a turn, and I appreciate it, and I do actually mostly enjoy the comedy in this. Which I didn't think I liked as much as I did the first time I watched it 3 years ago when I was, again, leading up to Evil Dead Rise. So I'm glad I enjoy it more than I did the first time. Now, having that being said, I do actually think this is probably going to ruin the ranking, because when hopefully me and Nerty, when we watch Evil Dead Burn, we will rank all of these films, all these Evil Dead films, the latest. The reason now why I'm saying this is going to be ruining the ranking a little bit, I think the first Evil Dead film is better than this second film, but I do think Evil Dead 2 is a more rewatchable film, just because it's a lot more entertaining, for me anyway. Again, some people might not like this because it's too overkill with the comedy and satire. Well, satire is comedy, but you know what I mean, the type of comedy. The slapstick, satire, all sorts of types of comedy here, but it is very comedy-centric. So again, depending on your taste, you might not like it, but I actually really enjoy myself. Is it perfect? Is it a perfect film? No, but the comedy mostly works for me. So, comedy, very funny, and yeah. Sorry, I just noticed that the fucking microphone's dead, so that's good. I don't know when that cut out, but obviously I'll put it in the edit. Anyway, so yeah, comedy, really funny. Next, I think Ash is obviously a bigger improvement to the original film. Some might disagree, but he's a lot more fun and engaging as a character in this film than he is in the first film. Again, in the first film, if you haven't seen my review for the first film, I did say Ash is a bit of a pussy, coward, and a bit of a limp. You know, he's not that much engaging as a character. So you kind of connect with him more here, because he's just so more self-aware with how funny he is and just over the top he is. Oh, again, it's the comedy. He's a lot more just so some might say it's cringe, but it is slightly like the way that Ash and Linda, his girlfriend, because in a second when I get to it, Linda is also in this, because the first 15 or so minutes of this film is a recap of the first film. So when it's just Ash and Linda, Ash is very more kind of, I don't know, he has a bit more of a dicky energy in this film compared to the first one, because in the first one he was a lot more sweet, whereas in this one he's a more, again, not, I don't want to say dicky, but he's a lot more, you know, he's so, I can't think of the word right now, it's going to annoy me, but I'll put it in the edit, but He's just so over the top. Again, can't think of any other word to put it, but just, yeah. So Ash is to me is a bigger improvement as a character in this one than he is in the first film, but he isn't terrible in the first film, but again, just less memorable. So yeah, comedy is funny. The comparisons between the first film are good, and then obviously Ash as a character is better, and obviously we can't forget about the iconic groovy moment. Just that whole scene with, making the chainsaw arm, and then obviously using the chainsaw to cut off the end of the gun, and then obviously flips it, puts it in the back of his thing, and then groovy. That was a terrible impression, but it's such an iconic and memorable scene. Arguably the best scene in the film, or sequence in the film, but obviously, a lot of people can concur on that. But yeah, I just so many iconic moments, especially with Ash, and yeah. And I think this might be my last positive on the top of my head, but obviously I'll add it in. I'll add another positive in if I remember it. But I feel like there's another one, but I'll say this is my last one. But my last positive, which is I think is actually something that I said was a mixed or a negative in the first film's review, which was the effects. Some of the effects aged poorly, and it was a bit sometimes overkill. Now, because of the tonal shift from horror-centric to comedy and slapstick being more self-aware of how silly it is, I actually think the effects, for better or worse, I think actually work for me. Because, again, because it's slapstick, because it's not taking itself very seriously, I think the effects, despite aging not the best, I think because of its tonal shift, drastic tonal shift, it works better. Well, a lot better, actually. Like the constant spraying of the blood coming out of the walls and other effects. I'm trying to think at the top of my head. But again, the effects that I remember seeing last night from seeing the film, I think do work better because of the tonal shift from horror-centric to more slapstick, self-aware comedy. So that's my last positive on the film. So, yeah, let's move on to my mixed. So, yeah, my first mixed aspect is actually something, again, like I mentioned in the intro, is the first 15, say 15, maybe 20 minutes of this film, which is, again, a recap of the first film. It's slightly different to the first film because of legal issues with gaining the rights, because Sam Raimi forgot to secure the rights at the time to the first film, so he couldn't use the footage from that first film to basically remind viewers what occurred in the first film for people that hadn't watched the film. So he had to recreate those scenes from the first film. However, it is different. It's actually pretty different when you look at it. One is the cabin itself looks slightly different, but also, I mean, it's a similar layout, but in terms of the look, I think it's just because the production is a lot bigger. I think the production, the budget went up from, I think I said it was like $375,000, and now it's like $3.5 million. So it's a big drastic jump from the original's budget to the second film. So obviously there's a lot more going for it to an extent. But yeah, so the first 15 minutes, the recap of the first film is different, and what was different about it was that obviously in the first film we had Ash, his sister, and his girlfriend, as well as Scott and his girlfriend. So five characters in that first film, whereas in this film it's only two, Ash and his girlfriend Linda. So yeah, no more Scott and his girlfriend and Ash's sister, such as those two. So make of that what you will. Some people might not mind that, but I'm fine with it. Yeah, I didn't really like Scott and his girlfriend, really. And his sister as well. Ash's sister wasn't really a major fault for me. So just having Ash and his girlfriend, Linda, was fine for me. But the thing is that, which is why it's in my mix, I'm a bit like, should they have spent that time recreating those scenes? Because it's like, it's just using up some of the runtime, whereas you could have made something new. It should have been something different, maybe a different setup, different location. But on one hand, I actually kind of liked the recap, because again, it's different. They showed the archaeologists, they showed the parents, they showed they showed the previous owners of the cabin, because in the first film we heard on the cassette player that obviously there were previous owners that went there, but we didn't see those people, whereas in this one, in the second film, we do see them. So seeing them being at the cabin doing their stuff was very interesting. Again, it was brief, but it was cool. As well as a few other bits that I can't remember on the top of my head, but so yeah, there's some things I can commend from it, but as well as that, I can totally understand people's frustration for, you know, using up the first 15 minutes as a recap. But I on one hand, again, I'm very which is why I'm a mix. It's like, one hand, I like some of the changes that they did because it's different, but also it's like we're still recapping we're still recapping what happened in the first film, mostly. So that's why the first 10-15 minutes of this film is in my mixed. So yeah, that's my first mixed. And now my second and final mixed aspect for this film is the ending of this film. Now, actually, I'd forgotten how this film ended. And then I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, this ends, you know, kind of starting off how Army of Darkness begins, because I actually thought the opening of Army of Darkness was the ending of the second film. That's what I thought it was. But I was clearly wrong. Because I'd forgotten that obviously Sam Raimi's intention was to make another third film after the second film, because again, I thought it was just like studios being like, oh, make a sequel, and he obviously did. But no, obviously, you know, doing this third installment, Army of Darkness, was his intention. So obviously when we talk about Army of Darkness, we will. But I don't know how I feel about the time travel thing and going back in time and doing it there. Like, I know it's kind of kooky and some people enjoy it, but again, until I watch Army of Darkness to get that full scale of what that ending is, because again, we go back in time to the medieval era and get that flavour of how Army of Darkness could be. But until I see that, my judgment call is that I don't know how I feel, because again, time travel, going back in time to that portal thing, going through, and it's, you know, it's, I don't know, it's just a bit like, I don't know, again, which is why it's in my mix. It's like, I don't really 100% know how I feel, because it's like, I could feel different when I watch Army of Darkness. Because obviously this whole thing with time travel and going back in time and seeing the medieval era with the Deadites, it's gonna be different. So again, could change my feelings on that, but the time travel stuff, I just don't know how I feel about it. So the ending was a little bit iffy for me. So it could go one or two ways when I watch Army of Darkness. I could end up being like, okay, I actually don't really mind the ending to the second film that leads on to this Army of Darkness, because depending on if my thoughts have changed for Army of Darkness, you could probably get a sense of how I did feel about Army of Darkness 3 years ago when I last watched it. But we will see. We'll see how I feel. But that's why I had to point this out in my mixed, because again, I was just iffy on the ending. So yeah, that's my second and final mixed aspect. So let's get into the negatives. Okay, actually, I think I only have one negative. Again, if something comes to mind, then I will say. But my only negative for this film is the side characters. Well, I should say all the characters aside from Ash, Because again, Ash was a standout for me. He was a lot better in the first film. But the characters in this film, I mean, aside from Linda, his girlfriend, because his girlfriend was, not in there for very long, because obviously she gets killed. But the archaeologist couple that come in, and the hillbilly couple, so the 4 other characters that end up joining Ash by the end, not really a fan of them, really. They're not really anything special. Like, they're not very memorable. They're just, to me, cannon fodder, and that's how I pronounce it. If you don't know what that means, it basically means they're just there to be there and get killed, and just to be kind of the stereotypical characters they are. Hillbillies, very mental people with missing teeth, like that big dude. Like, again, just characters that I don't really care about. They just get killed in the end. I mean, the hillbillies aren't very nice people. Mainly the guy, because obviously he ends up trying to kill Ash. By the end of it, he throws him down the cellar bit. And yeah, I don't know. Like, even when Ash falls in love with the female archaeologist, the daughter of the, I think the father of the female archaeologist is the father of the person who owned the cabin previous to Ash and Linda going there. So that side of things was kind of interesting, but aside from that, those other characters I couldn't really give a fuck about, to be honest, if I'm being completely honest. Ash is the only character in this film that I genuinely care about and think is amusing and just engaging to watch, just because he is so over the top. I mean, the other characters are over the top, but their acting is a bit poor. But I guess some people might not mind that, because it's so slapstick and nonsensical and doesn't take itself too seriously. Some people won't mind that, but I always have to point out the things that I do and don't like, so there you go. So yeah, I think that is my my only negative for this film. It's going to annoy me when I edit this film, be like, shit, I forgot another negative, but I think that is the only one I have on the top of my head. So yeah, all in all, guys, I definitely enjoyed this film more than I did the first time I watched it 3 years ago, again, leading up to Evil Dead Rise. Again, I think this is more rewatchable than the first Evil Dead film, at least at the moment I think so. But I do think the first Evil Dead film is better than this second film. It's a better made film, and I think I prefer, I don't know, I guess it depends on my mood. That's why I like both these films and why they're so different. One's more horror-centric. I want to watch more of a horror-centric film, I'll watch the original. If I want more of a fun, slapstick, if I want to laugh more and have a good time, I'll watch the second film. That's why I love the fact these both films exist. 2 different types of people like these films, or maybe there are people that like both these films, like I do, to an extent. So yeah, that's just kind of my overall thoughts, really. Like, I like the fact that both films exist because they're so different from each other, to an extent. And yeah, I just had a really fun time watching this film, despite a few issues that I had. But yeah, entertaining, guys. So yeah, let me know in the comments below, guys, what you think of Evil Dead 2 and how does it compare for you to the original Evil Dead film from 1981. Do you like it more? Do you like it less? Let me know what you like and what you don't like about it. How would you rate it? Speaking of rating, I'm aware that I didn't rate the first Evil Dead film in the review from yesterday. Part of me wants to say it was intentional, but it actually wasn't. I just forgot. But I'm actually going to hide my ratings for now, because I don't want you guys to look at those reviews and look at the ratings, but oh, that's going to be higher than this. That's why I want to keep my ranking a surprise, because I don't want people to figure out, oh, that's going to be the bottom, that's going to be third, that's going to be second, blah, 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 all that stuff. So that's why I'm glad now that I actually didn't rate the first film, because now I would feel obligated to rate the second film. So that being said, no rating yet for Evil Dead 2, as well as the first film, as well as the next one's coming up. So I'll probably reveal my ratings for those films when I do the ranking. So yeah, so it'll be a surprise. So yeah, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you for my review for Army of Darkness, which again, hopefully will be later today. No guarantees, but we'll see. So yeah, bye.